this is bad. Alright. Today's project is going to be, you can kind of see it. It's the 89 diesel K5 Blazer on the 6.2. By the title you could probably figure out what this is about, but pretty common, the starter bracket for these guys. These engines, the 6.2 and the 6.5 diesels, they make a ton, or the starters use a lot of torque to spin over the diesel engine. They're high compression engines. And the two starter bolts that you typically find on like a small block Chevy or one of the other motors that GM used, it's usually enough on like a gas engine motor. But with these high compression diesel V8s and the high torque starters, they just use a lot of torque to turn that motor over, and it ends up wiggling and breaking off the starter bolts and cracking the engine. So GM put a little tab on there that's a brace on the back end of the starter, kind of where the electricals hook up, to hold it and fasten that to the block. So it's got 3 points to adhere the starter to the block. And a lot of times, for whatever reason, these starter bracket braces, they just disappear. I have 3 of these 6.2 or 6.5 engines, those trucks. Not a single one came to me with the starter bracket on it. Well, that's not totally true. One of them did come with the starter bracket still on it, but the stud going into the starter was missing. So the bracket's not, it's there, but it's not actually holding the starter on. So the 6.5 and the 6.2, they're a little bit different, the brackets, but I've already done this one on my 6.5, and I should have showed you that one, but I was just in the middle of a transmission swap you guys were watching. Basically, that starter had already started to work itself loose. When I grabbed it and wiggled that starter, it kind of had a 1/16 inch of play on it. So when I took that out, I put the brace on there and I put the bolts back in, and I torqued it down to spec, and that should be good. We didn't break anything off. But I'll show you how to do that today. It's kind of a pain in the butt. On the 6.5, it was horrible, actually, to be honest. On this 6.2, this is not turbocharged. This truck is naturally aspirated, so that I think is going to help out a ton. We're not going to have as many issues with, I don't think, stuff being in the way. But you've still got frame rails and exhaust manifolds all in your way. On this one, I'm going to remove the inner fender. So that should actually help, I think, a lot. Plus, there's something else I got to do in there when I'm removing the inner fender anyways, so it's makes perfect sense. It's a no-brainer on this one. So enough yipping, and we'll get yapping. Battery's disconnected as per usual. I don't know. Don't disconnect it if you want. See what happens. 6.2 passenger side. We're trying to get down there. And you know, that's why I'm removing this stuff, because it's just impossible to see it or get to any of it. So I'm gonna get this all out of the way and get you guys a better angle. Step one for me is gonna be chalk the rear tires and remove this wheel on the fender well, so that I can just remove it freely. You're gonna have to get these guys out. I think those are 9/16. There's a few of those, and then the rest are gonna be 1/2s. They're gonna be just all along here. There's going to be some up here you can see. I've had this out before, and so the reason I'm taking I haven't put every single one back in, so you can see that one's missing. I'll show you what that's for. It didn't line up. That's to hold my air filter ducting. But once I get this out, the reason I'm taking this out is, one, to give you a better shot to see the starter bracket, and then 2, this air box. So the flow coming out of my vents, I don't have heavy flow basically. It's pretty weak when I've got any of my heater controls on, and I can hear the fan pumping. It's the stock fan. I upgraded my other Blazer, but I'm losing a lot of airflow. Now, if you've ever taken this box off to do, on this truck I had to replace the heater core, but if you've done like a dash swap or added AC or had to remove this box, this whole unit for any reason, you're gonna destroy the factory seal back here, and you're gonna lose a ton of air. Just the fan's gonna be blowing air, and it comes right out of this whole seal around here. So I'm gonna silicone this entire thing. Now, the reason I'm taking off the inner fender is you can't get to a lot of the bottom side of this box with the inner fender in the way. So I'm removing that, and then I'll cover everything in silicone, and that way all of the air that my fan is pumping will actually make it into the cab. It may not make it out the vents if you've got a bunch of bad connections in your ducting on the inside, but at the very least you won't be wasting all of the airflow right around here. It'll at least make it in the cab. So let me get that fender off, and then I'll show you what I'm siliconing, and then I'll show you the actual starter bracket and where it goes. It's tight quarters again. So now I guess I'm 2 for 2 with getting trucks where the bracket is still attached but not hooked up. So this bracket, you can see the bolt up there. That's the metric bolt that goes into your engine. And that little bracket there, I mean, that bolt stays there. It holds up this little heat shield above your starter to protect it from the exhaust. So I think people, when they change these out, they probably leave that. I mean, they have to unbolt this bolt to get the starter out from over here, but they probably just leave this one up here. Now I reached up there, this thing is just flopping around. I can move it. The stud is still on the end of the starter. You can't see it, but it's basically right up there. But what's kind of throwing me off here now is this bracket. I believe that's the bracket for the 6.5 liter diesel. That's the exact one I just put on my 6.5 truck. The 6.2 truck, I have a different bracket. It's more curved and rounded. I've got it on the bench over there. So I don't know. This is a 6.2. I don't know how that bracket got there. This is out of an 89, so maybe the later model 6.2s, maybe they have a different bracket. Maybe this is a different starter. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm going to, there's not a lot of room to show you, but that's basically what I'm getting after. And there is a stud that sticks off the end of the starter. It's like a, I think it was M. No, that one was 1/4 by 20, the threads for that, I think. So I'm going to try to get some penetrating fluid on this bolt. On my 6.5, I actually broke that bolt off inside the head, or inside the engine. So I had to use a different one and weld together a custom bracket, which is dumb. This truck is not near as rusty. So I'm going to try to take this guy out and then get things resituated. And we'll check back in. Here are the two brackets. This is what I believe to be the 6.5 that came off my truck. Here's what holds it. The stud goes through here off the tip of the starter. And I thought this was the 6.2 bracket. Much different, much larger. This one looks like it's gonna fit. I need to clean off the stud because it's covered in grime, and then get a nut on there and see if I can make that work. But, well, yeah, here's the part number for this guy. The 6.5 one, the one that came off the truck. N Nancy 23502557. So that's what came off, and this just came off Amazon. So let's check it out. Okay, the starter bracket is in. It's right there. I had to remove the main lead to the starter just to reroute it because it was in the way, and I'm guessing that's why the last person maybe didn't install this. I'm hoping it's ignorance rather than just maybe they don't care, but that doesn't really matter. It's in now, and I'll just make sure the starter bolts are torqued down to spec, make sure that's tight. I mean, you can really tell a difference if you try to wiggle one of these starters by grabbing it at the back before this thing's installed versus after. It does provide a ton of support, even though it's this tiny little flimsy bracket. All the leverage is back here trying to crank. So if you got something supported, not letting it move back here, it helps a ton as far as not stripping out your bolts and then cracking your block. So that's that, and I will move on to siliconing this guy, and then I can put the fender on and we're done with this truck. We're done with this project and on to the next. Okay, the atrocity has been done. I used clear caulk. It's just outdoor window silicone, so you know, can't see much, but essentially I just went around the entire thing and filled the gap. So now I'm going to put my inner fender back on, and that'll pretty much be this video. So I think I'll cut it right here. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Holla back at your boy.